Remember when I told you all phase 5 was called New Beginnings? It ain't just new beginnings of YouTube and projects. It's also new beginning of my life. We're stepping into something new very, very soon. My experience at Target coming soon. This is new, isn't it? Haven't seen you guys in a while. Most of the time when I have long absences like this, I'll be like, oh, I'm back. Welcome back to more content, but it's a little overdone. I deleted most of them, but I've had a little too many return videos. So let's just jump straight into the action. So it's been a while since I've done a story time video with you guys. The last one I did was, I think it was my near-death experience. But I want to bring back a video that I haven't done in a while called My Experience. Now, for those of you that are new to the channel, I've already made a My Experience video. It's lower down in my YouTube list. I'm probably going to end up making a playlist if I make a third one of these, so it's easier to find. But now we are doing My Experience at Target. I told you all I was going to do this when/if I stopped working at Target, and the time has happened. As of somewhere around mid-May, I forgot the exact date, I think it was like May 22nd, I am no longer a Target employee. So now, My Experience at Target, Chapter 1, The Beginning. To say the least, my beginning at Target was actually really fun. I genuinely enjoyed it quite a bit. So what happened was I got the phone call that my interview was great, that they want to bring me on board. However, she wasn't that clear on what position it was going to be. And it left me a little uncertain because they were explaining that I'm going to undergo a lot of different trainings for a lot of different positions. So it left me wondering, like, what am I exactly going to do? But I just decided to play the waiting game. So she scheduled my orientation like 3 weeks away, she being our HR. And I decided to take those 3 weeks to enjoy myself. Well, those 3 weeks came a lot quicker than expected. I had an issue. There was an issue where I was trying to figure out where to go, because I was like, wait, the Target I applied to wasn't even open yet. It was this Encino Target over in Encino, and it wasn't a thing yet. It was still being built. However, I got hired. They were already hiring for it months before they were ready to launch their opening. So I asked her, where are we going? And she's like, oh, that's right, I didn't make that clear, I apologize. We're going to be meeting at the Starbucks in the Topanga Target. I said, okay, sounds cool. And we went to the orientation, and everything was pretty cool. Straightforward job, straightforward positioning, met some of management. Everyone seemed really sweet. They gave me a little welcoming bag. And it's actually funny, a little bit after that orientation, I got an interview to Lowe's. Because this was already like a couple months after Walmart, and my mom's like, you need to get a job. I get you lost your last job, but that doesn't mean you're just going to go back to being complacent. Like, I want you to get a job. So I had an interview for Lowe's, and then I was already hired at Target. So I opted to stay with Target, also because Lowe's was offering me an overnight position. I wasn't trying to do overnight. My training was absolutely just really fun, and I had very straightforward hours, 8 to 4, 10 to 6, but most of them were 8 to 4 for the beginning. A couple 9 to 5s, and I got sent to so many different stores where I got to meet so many different people, one of which is my girlfriend today. But that's already a story I told on this video, so we're not going to go into that. But I worked at Topanga, Woodland Hills, and Raymer. And all three of them I learned 3 different things. general merchandise, electronics, which by this time I already had the expectation that that's what I was going to do, which I'm really happy about because that's what I wanted to do since Walmart, and fulfillment. And I'm not really going to go too in depth about how that was because there's so many other things I need to cover in this story time video. So I'm just going to get to the meat of it, the bad part. Because let's be honest, everyone is more intrigued on the bad than the good. So thus far, my beginning, I would rate great. It was a very, very fun beginning. But now we get to chapter 2. The nightmare begins. So, to better understand the nightmare, you gotta understand the context. So, up to this point, I've been having a blast at Target. Like, meeting so many new people, having an amazing experience everywhere I'm going. I'm still friends with some of the people I met at these different Targets, by the way. Like, shout out my boy, Raven. You're the homie. Got to meet up with him a couple weeks ago, I would say. Yeah, it hasn't been a month yet. A couple weeks ago. You haven't changed, bro. You're still amazing. If you're watching this, miss you, man. But back to the whole story. So we're more focused on when I went over to Raymer. So this is a Target over in like the Van Nuys area in California. And right there, I learned fulfillment. So we got a very brief rundown with one of our leaders on what fulfillment was, but I didn't fully understand it. So when I got there, I told the ETL, I think his name was David. I told David, I said, I don't know fulfillment. So he was fine with it, or so I thought. But we'll get to that in a second. He was fine with that, and he said, just go along with some of our best fulfillment people, and you'll get an understanding of it. So I trained with these 2 girls. One was named, I trained with 3 people actually. 2 girls, 1 guy. Trained with a dude named Kyler, nice dude. A girl named Angel, a bit, like, she gave me a weird vibe. Like, she just seemed like she didn't like me. She would always try to just shoo me, but like not in a mean way. And then this girl named Jeaustin, also very friendly. So when I trained with all 3 of them, I had a blast. Nothing can complain about. The bad thing starts day 2. So on day 2, I get a message from my leader, Jessica, telling me that she's not my direct leader, but she was one of my leaders. At this point, I have met 2. I met Jessica, and I met another one named Jeaustin. Not the Jeaustin that trained me, different Jeaustin. In total, I meet like 3 Jeauslins in my Target experience. So, but I'm only gonna talk about one, the one that's a leader. But that's later in the story. I only mentioned the other Jeaustin because she trained me. But from this point forward, when I talk about one Jeaustin, it's the leader. Okay, now back to the topic. So, Jessica calls me and she's like, hey, or no, she messages me. She's like, hey, when you get a chance, can we talk? We need to have a little bit of a conversation. And at this point, I can't tell if it's bad or good because I haven't gotten any corrective action. Actually, that's a lie. That's a lie. I thought I haven't had any corrective action or anything bad said to me. But my first experience with Jeaustin in Woodland Hills, she was kind of mean. I forgot what I did that she didn't like very much, but she didn't like something. And I only don't tell it in the story or include it in this chapter because I don't remember. But she was very upset at me at something, but I can't remember what it was. But whatever. So Jessica calls me, and this is honestly a very significant part of my whole journey because in my opinion, this conversation we had was the start of her despising me. Like, she hated me. And you're going to hear me talk about Jessica a lot during my time at Encino. But as of now, we haven't even gotten to Encino yet. We are a hire, but we're still training. So I asked one of the leaders in Raymer / Van Nuys if I could go take a call. And they said, yeah, sure, just take it in there. And so I go and I text Jessica and I say, hey, can we talk now? I'm available. And she says, yeah, sure, no problem. So she gets mad at me for two things. Number one, I hit my 5th hour that day. And 5th hours, for those of you that work 9 to 5s, know that that's not good. That's actually really bad. The reason I hit my 5th hour, I don't consider it my fault, and I will not own up to it to this day. The reason why I hit my 5th hour was because in fulfillment, you have to collect every single item in your bag it before a time limit. And that time limit, I felt like I could hit before I go on my lunch. Mind you, I still had ample time. I had like 40 minutes. I'm like, I'm not gonna waste this time or else you're gonna get mad at me. So I do it, and there's this one item. I cannot find it anywhere. And I go to a leader because in Target, when you can't find an item, you have to INF it, item not found, and they don't like doing that. So they will help you find it, and 40% of the time they'll find it for you, but the other 60 they won't. But they don't want to accept that. So what they'll either do is A, INF it, no problem, or B, they will make you search for it. So I couldn't find a leader because I only knew of one leader at this time, which was a different angel. So not the one I had mentioned before. There are 2 angels at this store. One was a leader and the other was the one I mentioned before. This is a leader angel. That's the only leader I knew about. And I couldn't find him anywhere. So I walk into the back and I say, hey, is anybody a leader here? And this girl raises her hand. I don't even remember her name, but I say, hey, can I INF this with you? I can't find it anywhere. She did not want to do that. So she sent me on a goose chase around this area at the Target. Mind you, it's a very big Target. Raymer is a big Target, especially the back area is huge. And guess what? I go 5 minutes into my 5th hour because of her. Until I finally can INF it, and we move on. So now you guys know why I hit my 5th. Back to the Jessica phone call. So Jessica starts going off on me because according to David, the ETL, I was supposed to already know fulfillment by the time I got there so that I could help them during my 3 days there. And that the first day was a waste because they had to train me. And I'm over here like, I'm sorry, I didn't understand it the first time when we all did it together. And she's upset at me that I didn't ask any questions. But I mean, I'm shy. Everyone has those moments. Everyone gets shy. It's normal. But she was just not happy. And she tells me that to just do what I can during my time there and then go from there. And that just kind of ruined my whole experience. But once I finally left Raymer, I went back to Topanga and things kind of went back to normal. Nothing really significant happened at Topanga other than like one more experience with Jessica where she was mean to me. But the bulk of Jessica in this story happens when I'm actually already in Encino. So we're going to move over to chapter... What are we at now? Chapter 3, I believe. We're going to move over to chapter 3. And if I start getting my chapters mixed up, the editing will correct it. But chapter 3, the opening. The actual opening at Encino was quite interesting, actually. I was already in Encino before quite a few other people, including one of my coworkers that was actually going to run the department with me named Brianna. I had met Brianna already in, I believe it was Topanga. She was already training in electronics when I was in a different department. I thought I was going to meet with her at Encino the week that I got sent there, but no, actually. I got sent to Encino before my 3 other electronic coworkers. 4 if you include our leader, but I'm going to say nothing but good things about him. But my 3 electronic coworkers were still in other stores training. I believe Jeaustin and Arthur were in Sherwood Forest, which was one of the last targets I trained at before I got sent to Encino. And Brianna stayed at Topanga. Topanga or went to Woodland Hills. One or the other, I don't remember. Fun fact about Brianna, she used to work at Woodland Hills, and a lot of the people knew her already there, so they pushed for her to stay there, but Encino loved her, so they didn't allow that. But, so, once I actually got to Encino, it was absolutely flipped upside down. Like, nothing was set up, the store was emptied out. That was because we were now the Plano team, basically in charge of setting up the shelves, setting up the floor, setting up the format, all that mumbo jumbo. And me being in electronics, I got sent there to build it with a couple other people that weren't actually going to be there, but still were there to help me out, which I appreciate. I met a lot of amazing people there and some not so amazing people there. But most of them were really, really good. And I'm not really going to go into the people that weren't, because they didn't really play a significance in this story more than Jess, who was the actual lead. So I didn't deal with Jessica too much during the actual Plano, which is good. Because at this point I had already felt like she had it out for me. So I was pretty happy about that. But when the store actually launched opening, that's when I started dealing with her the most. So there was a piece of information I left in the last chapter that I hope you guys remembered. But if you didn't, here's my time where I'm going to remind you. Jess is not my direct leader. My direct leader was a guy that got hired named Manny. And let me tell you, Manny is amazing. I still have his number. I texted him a while back. Not recently, but a while back. Super chill dude, doing his thing, happy as he can be. He was there for me when I needed him most, but the problem was my schedule wasn't really that well correlated with his. So sometimes I would work without him at all. And a lot of those times that I wouldn't work with him at all, my lead usually became Jeaustin. Jeaustin was a somewhat more decent version of Jessica. Jeaustin also was pretty mean, but not as bad as Jessica. And Jeaustin would really find anything to get on me. She would ask me what I'm working on all the time. She would ask me when I'm talking to this person, or literally anything. Like, I remember there was this one time where I was pushing a cart over to the elevator to get it downstairs, and I quickly passed by, I think it was my coworker Giselle at the time, and I asked her how she was doing, and she said good, and she asked me how I'm doing, and all I say is good. And what do you freaking know? Jeaustin is walking down the aisle, looks at me, Jeaustin, what are you working on? I'm like, I was just moving my cart downstairs so I could backstock it. And she's like, it doesn't look like it looks like you're talking. I'm like, I was just saying hi to her. She's like, just get going. I'm like, whoa, okay, well, all right. So it was a lot of back and forths and a little piece of information. I was getting frustrated with Target Encino, honestly, since it opened. But something that helped me recharge and rekindle my energy is one of the friends I made during the time I was there named Nate, who was an HR assistant for our main HR, Noemi, came up to me one day and he told me, he said, hey, Jeaustin, do you want to go work at Topanga for a week? And I'm like, well, what's the special occasion, Nate? And he says, they need help with inventory, and we offered that we could send some people over there to help them out. I said, say less. I'm so down. I missed Topanga at the time, and I really wanted to go catch up with people and just help out. By the way, I set myself on a death mission because the inventory was for the fridge and freezers. Oh, God. It was cold. But I still preferred that over dealing with Jess, to be honest with you. So that helped me recharge because I was a whole week away from Encino. So by the time I came back, I felt rejuvenated. Another thing that helped me out quite a bit was Jeaustin was going on a leave. I forgot what the occasion was, but she was going on a leave. And during that leave, I didn't realize what that came with. Jessica was going to be more involved. But something else that helped me quite a bit was a little bit after Jeaustin came back, Jessica went on vacation. And that was possibly the greatest week of my Target Encino trip. I got very heavy schedules. Like, I worked 5 days versus Brianna's 2, who was the other opener supposedly for electronics, and I got the heaviest workload, but they were always wanting to push Brianna to be the leader. So I'm over here like, the heck, man? And there's a funny sequel to that, actually. I'm just going to tell you this now. I'm not going to include it in the later story because this is my story. No offense, Brianna. Brianna stuck around at Encino waiting for that time to get promoted, and they never did it. They just kept milking and milking and milking her time until what happened? She got fed up and she quit because all they did at Encino was lead you on. But that's besides the point. So now we get to a specific point where now I'm reaching my breaking point at Encino. And this argument, I'm never going to forget it. There are two I'm never going to forget, and this is one of them. Because this is starting to, like, genuinely get me fed up with Jessica. So, I show up to work at my usual 8 to 4. And Jessica is already upset at me saying, Jeaustin, you were supposed to be here at 6. What happened? And I'm over here so confused at what she's talking about because I've had 8 to 4s from beginning to end that I could remember with an occasional 7 to 3, but 97% of the time it's been 8 to 4s. And what do you know? Without my consent, because it was not in my availability, Noemi scheduled me 6 to 2. So I was pretty upset about that, and I couldn't find Noemi ever at this time. So I went to Nate, but I wasn't mean to Nate because Nate's always been cool with me. I went to Nate and I'm like, Nate, why did I get scheduled 6 to 2 if Noemi knows that that's not in my availability? And Nate gave me a pretty cop-out answer, but again, he's not going to know anything. He doesn't really run the schedules. It was more Noemi. But he just said that it was probably some sort of mix-up. It is what it is. But Jessica just kind of left it at that. I wasn't mad at Jess at the time because she just had the expectation. What pisses me off is what happened after. So I go toward the elevator to go downstairs to, I believe, grab my 1-for-1s, I think. I'm over here getting so invested in what I'm talking about, I didn't even realize how long the video was getting. I'm already at like almost 20-something minutes. This is going to be one of my longer videos. I was debating on splitting it into 2, but no, I'm just going to put it into 1 because it's all one company. I'm not going to stay on one topic too long, which is the reason why I jumped to the beginning so quickly. But basically what happened in that conversation was she was just standing there and she pulls me aside and she's like, Jeaustin, I need to talk to you. And I'm like, yeah, what's going on? And she's like, since the time you arrived at 8 a.m., what have you done? I'm like, I grabbed my push, I did my audit, I pulled some 1-for-1s. And she's like, how much push have you grabbed? I'm like, I'm on my 3rd box. And she's like, so you've only done 2 boxes since you've got here, and it's been 4 hours. I said, yeah, I've only done 2 boxes because I had other things to do. And she's like, Jeaustin, you've only done 2. Like, she just keeps saying it over and over, like, all condescendingly. And at this point, I'm still too intimidated to say something because she's, in a sense, one of my bosses, just not my direct boss. So, in the end, she kind of lectures me, but I don't remember much of what she says, and she just tells me to basically hurry up, in a sense. The rest of the shift goes okay. All my other shifts, can't really complain about. Like I said, all the other leaders, amazing. Can't really say much about anything other than Jeaustin and Jessica. However, after that conversation, I do want you guys to bear in mind, I did get a little bit fed up at this point. So I went to Ada, who was our store manager. and I talked to her about Jessica and how she's been treating me, and telling her how I just can't deal with this anymore. And Ada said she was going to talk to her. After that, I haven't dealt with anything. It seemed like she actually did. And then I made the mistake of having to ask her a question. And when I asked her that question, I got that attitude again. That attitude I've been getting used to. So I went to, I believe it was, what did I do? I went to my coworker and I told him, I said, dude, this is getting just way too difficult to deal with. Like, she just keeps getting worse and worse. Like, there was this one time where I went into receiving and she was there with a different leader named Raul. Like I said, nothing bad to say about any of the leads, including him. He said, hey, Jeaustin, can I just stop you for a second? And I said, yeah, what's going on? And he says nothing but nice things about me, saying how I work hard, how he appreciates me, how he appreciates all the hard work I'm doing. And he says he's proud of me. And Jessica's just standing there completely quiet, doesn't say a thing. I've gotten recognition at huddles. Another video you guys might have seen on this channel, the camera I got. That camera was at Encino. And that was also the store where I've gotten praise from customers, from experiences I provide other customers. Like, I had enough proof to know that what Jess had against me was personal. And there was this other time where she does something similar to what she did in that last conversation, where she pulls me and she starts telling me things. And at this point, I'm fed up, but I'm still too scared to say something. So I keep it brief. And we're in front of a different guy who's above both of us, me and her. And I just say, I can't help it anymore. I'd say, Jessica, can I ask you something? Why are you always trying to argue with me? And she's like, I ain't trying to argue with you. I'm not always trying to start things. I'm just explaining to you this, and that. And I'm like, I just walk away. I walk away. I say, I don't want to do it. But that was my last straw. I went to my HR and I requested my transfer because I already reported her and nothing changed. I would like to transfer. But because I didn't want to go through the whole headache of why don't we just talk and try to, like, I just told her I want to go somewhere where I live a lot closer. So I mentioned 3 stores. I mentioned West Hills, which is a store I never worked at, but it was like 15 minutes from where I lived. I mentioned Topanga, which is similar distance as West Hills, just a tiny bit further. And I mentioned Woodland Hills. Topanga and Woodland Hills were stores that I had already worked at, so they were ones I was leaning more towards, but I wouldn't have minded West Hills. And West Hills said no. Topanga never even responded, but Woodland Hills said maybe. What was the terms and conditions she set? I open up my availability and I accept a position of general merchandise because electronics is full. I said, done. At first, I was a little bit hesitant to transfer, only because I had some really, really nice coworkers, some of which were trying to talk me out of it, not because they didn't think it was going to suit me, just because I made real friendships there. I went bowling with those guys. I had a blast with a lot of them. Luis, Atik, Yves, Nakin, miss all of you. Oh, and Raymond. Miss all of you guys. I hope y'all are doing good. Arthur, I miss you too, bro. Thankfully, we still have contact with each other. Heck, you were even in my YouTube channel. All of these amazing people were the reason I didn't want to leave. But you know what? It didn't even matter because some of them probably... I know Nakin doesn't work at Target anymore. I don't know about the other ones. But I know Raymond became a leader. I don't know if he stayed, though. And Arthur is elsewhere. Like, I think he moved back to the Valley, but he's not at Target. He got a different job. So, I still kept contact with these people and I opted to leave. So, this long chapter of chapter 3 is finally done. Now we get into chapter 4. Woodland Hills, a new beginning. So, as you guys remember, I mentioned that I accepted the position at Woodland Hills with the condition that I was going to have to be general merchandise. Even though I was supposed to be general merchandise, my new HR, the HR of Woodland Hills, was nice enough to still give me electronic shifts whenever she needed me because she knew I was very comfortable in that department, which I appreciated. I absolutely appreciate every bit of that. So, I'm not going to get into too much upon my arrival, but all I'm going to say is I reunited with the people I recognized. The ones I didn't, I just built a relationship with them. And I had a really, really good time. The fourth quarter of that year was amazing. All my tech coworkers were people I already knew. It was just super, 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 super fun. I cannot say anything bad about the fourth quarter. But Q1 rolls around, that's when the bad starts. You would think it'd be the other way around, right? Because Q1 is supposed to be more tamed and Q4 is supposed to be more intense. No, actually. Q1 was just as busy at that Target and ruined my whole first impression of Q1 and actually makes me prefer Q2 instead of Q1 because Q2 felt more chill every time I was there than Q1 did. And that was when I actually started getting sent to general merchandise because they didn't need people in electronics as much anymore. And when I got to general merchandise, it started okay because I had a lot of departments I was pretty comfortable with under a leader named Portia. Portia, amazing leader. Cannot say anything bad about her. But now we get to other departments. We start getting into stationery and HBA and kitchen. Now this is where I'm starting to have a bit more trouble. Now, I know a lot of the people that I mentioned in Encino, like Jeaustin and Jess, are probably not going to watch these videos. So I didn't mind. Also, she made my life such a living hell that the world deserves to know what her name is. So if you ever meet a Target employee named Jessica, who I believe is an ETL now in Raymer, you know what she puts her employees through. And I'm not the only one, by the way. There's people at Woodland Hills I met that worked with her who have said the same thing. But up to this point now, I got a lot closer with a lot of Woodland Hills people, much more than Van Nuys, because I ended up being there in longevity longer. I'm going to be more discreet about the people I talk about out of respect for them and the likeliness of them or anybody in their circle watching my videos. I don't want to put their name on some dirt, because at this point I don't actually hate anybody in that store. I just had some bad experiences with some of these people. But these bad experiences were all very temporary compared to the ones with Jessica. So basically I get worked like a horse. I get hella overworked in these departments and it just becomes too much for me to handle. And on top of that, the leader just kept micromanaging me and just constantly criticizing my work, and it just became, I guess it just became too stressful. It didn't even feel personal anymore. It just felt too stressful. And it made me just realize, unless I'm in electronics, I don't like it here. It didn't feel like I just needed to continue at Target anymore. It was just time for me to go. And I started looking at other applications already because I'm not going to transfer a third time. If I transfer and it's still not working out for me, that just means it's time for me to find something else. So I had a one-on-one with some of the management in Trader Joe's and absolutely killed it in the one-on-one. And they told me that here's an application, we'd be happy to work with you in the future, maybe for a seasonal position. And I was ready to put in my 2 weeks at Target and get the frick out of there. Do you want to know who stopped me? Wifey herself. Because at this point, me and her, we haven't become official, but we were talking. And I told her about my frustrations, and I told her I'm gonna leave, I'm done. But she, even though I didn't know this already, was catching feelings for me and didn't want me to leave. So she painted this really nice picture of what it could look like if I just waited it out a little bit. And I'm not even angry with her about that, because it ended up happening. A lot of what she said ended up being true. I ended up in electronics. I ended up in a much more relaxed environment. And I ended up doing something I've always wanted to do at Encino that I didn't get to do. I ended up getting to train new hires. And I knew my ability in leadership was really good when I found out that the new hire that I took under my wing and I trained the most out of the 2 new hires I trained became a plaque winner. Oh, and speaking of plaque winner, you see that little thing right there? Yeah. Fuck you, Jessica. But that's besides the point. So, yeah, I ended up going to electronics and having a blast. But I'm not gonna lie to you, it wasn't all sunshine and rainbows from there. And it ended up getting a little bit stressful toward now Q4, because even though I ended up training what ended up being a great new hire, he had some cons to him. And the con was just, he came in a little bit too early. Like, he loved to come in super early, like 4 a.m. early. But because he came so ridiculously early, the first 3 hours of his shift, he wouldn't really do much. To no fault of his own, it's just there was nothing to do. The trucks usually came at 5 to 6. So he was already 2 hours in, and now he's barely starting the bulk of things. So by the time I arrive, he's already almost out, and I still got to finish off what he started. And it was just hard on days where there were 2 trucks, because those were a little bit more bulky. So it just got a little bit stressful, but I worked my butt off. Management knew I was working my butt off. My ETO at the time, him, I will mention his name because nothing but good things to say about him. Josh, you're a blessing, man. You've been amazing and you treated me well while I was there. He knew my potential and he gave me praise, and it all ended up paying off because I got what I knew I could get. You guys can't see it, but that right there that I pointed at, that I said, fuck you, Jess, is actually a plaque for Performer of the Month. I won that during Q4, which is the most intense time of the year, which was December of 2022. So I did end up sticking it to Jessica. But after I won that plaque, I realized there's nothing left for me to do here. And the pay wasn't that well. I was starting to get myself into debt. And it was just absolutely nothing against Target at this point. I was in a much better place than I was before. I met the love of my life in this store, and things just looked amazing. But I needed something that makes your life, and if you don't have this thing, it can break your life, and that is money. I needed money, and Target was just not doing it for me. It wasn't providing enough money for me. So as comfortable as I was and as much that I enjoyed, I unfortunately had to leave. And now, no longer being a Target employee, I have moved on and started working elsewhere, which leads me to my final chapter, chapter 5, the end. A lot of you are probably wondering, why is this chapter starting with me in a blue jacket? Well, in hindsight, you would think I went back to Walmart because Walmart was blue. No, I did not. I did not get fired at Walmart, so I had the option to do that, but No, Walmart paid me just as much as Target did. It was absolutely no difference in Walmart. I actually went to an entirely new field. So it was still considered retail in a way, but it was, now we're looking at sales, which is something that I really wanted to do because I felt like I had a lot of good sales ability at Target where I don't get anything for selling things. So I'd rather get something if I'm gonna sell something, which is what brought me to, dun 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 dun, you can't see it, but it says a Spectrum. Multi-billion-dollar company that provides you internet, cable, and now cell phone and home phone for those of you that use landlines. So yeah, I am no longer a Target employee, and Spectrum has been quite an interesting journey to say the least. I don't have a lot to say about this company yet because as far as I'm concerned, my journey is still going as we speak. But this is the end of one chapter and the beginning of another. They're funding my tuition. Every time I reach management and I request for assistance in some sort of field, they're there for me. I've met so many different leaders, so many different managers, so many different in corporate. I've worked at now 3 different locations, and it's been amazing. I can't say anything bad about it. But what else do I have left to say about Target? Well, after I left, it was a pretty sad goodbye because, like I said, I was already pretty good with a lot of the management, and it passed the torch down to my new hire, or not. He wasn't new anymore. He was already in the company for a while, but the guy I trained, I said, take care of this department, take care of the mobile people, because there was like this mobile team at Target that would always hang out at the electronics department, and they had their own field of work, which they took care of. But they would also help us out, which we could appreciate. I always appreciated that from them. I was actually very interested in going into their field, but the pay was the only thing keeping me from doing it. But yeah, I am now in a different company. I am being treated amazing. They fixed my whole money dilemma. Cannot say anything bad about this company. And if there's anything left I have to say to end this video off, it's fuck you, Jess. Thank you, Target. And which job did I prefer more? Target by a landslide versus Walmart. I should have not stayed in that company as long as I should have, because you should always be seeking growth. But it's not like the time I spent there was bad. They treated me well for the time I was there, and it's just time to move on to the next. Thank you guys so much for watching. It's been a blast. It's good to be back. I said on Twitch that I was going to try to upload Twitch streams every Sunday, and then I miss a Sunday. Look, I was at the water park, okay? I'm probably going to stream tonight. I'm going to try to make videos on Sundays. They're just going to be the best day for me to film entirely, because it is a day that I, for the most part, just have nothing to do unless I make plans. So I think I could finally get back into the feel of things. We're going to try. We're in a little bit of a trial period, but June is my time to trial it and practice it, because July I'm going to get to work. July I'm going to continue this pattern, but I'm also going to bring back my podcast, and I'm going to try to go crazy on that. I already have like 3 podcast episodes set up. One with Jared. No, potentially 2 with Jared, because Jared and I thought Jared wants to do a sequel podcast, and then I've never been a guest in my own podcast. So it would be cool to have somebody host and I be the guest. So that's where Jared comes in. And then the third one, I'm not going to spoil it, but it's somebody completely new that hasn't been in the podcast yet. But yeah, thank you. I'm also talking to Wifey and asking her if she wants to be in it. She said it sounds like a cool idea, but she's still thinking about it. We won't pressure her. We'll see what she ends up deciding. But thank you guys so much for watching. Leave a thumbs up. Subscribe if you already didn't. I promise you, I'm going to try my best to not disappear again. I still do want to be a content creator. I may be in school and I may be trying to make my living elsewhere, but I'm only doing that because YouTube and content creating in general is not a guarantee. There is a lot of luck that is involved in it, but there's also a lot of hard work and dedication. Hard work and dedication that I don't have the ability to put because I don't trust my ability. And I guess it's a me problem, but I don't want to just spend 2 months filming, risk going broke, and not have a job that can pay me when I know YouTube ain't gonna pay me until I reach a certain amount. So until I reach that amount, until YouTube starts paying me, then we could talk about me making a career here. But as far as I'm concerned, I just don't feel confident enough to take that risk. But I'm more than happy to work for it. So thank you guys so much for watching. I'll see you all later. Goodbye!